Well, here we are for another conversation. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, sweetheart, as always.
Today, we're going to talk about marketing and selling your book. I think, particularly through fairs and when you've gone out to speak at groups and so on. So, maybe I can ask you first off, did you start that right from the very beginning? When you published The Loyalist Wife, did you get right out there right away and start selling and marketing your book?
Well, I didn't get out soon enough because you're really supposed to think about marketing as you're writing.
Okay.
That's a big thing. And of course I was up to my ears in thinking about writing and it took me a while before I did that. But once the book was published in June of that year, then I was immediately asked to go out to, I think I may have mentioned it to a probus club here in my city. And I told you the funny story about that. Um, anyways, that was wonderful. And it, a lot of writers are not excited about standing in front of groups. I think that's that's one reason I do this. I really love people. And I love to have discussions with people, and I love when they come up with something new that I hadn't thought of, and so yeah, it's my bailiwick, really.
Yeah.
A teacher and a singer, and I'm used to doing that. So that being said, as soon as I got that invitation, I immediately started thinking, well, what could I do? And some of the things I tried worked, and some didn't. I wanted to go to libraries and I sent out things to libraries around, in several counties around where I am, close enough to my ability to get there easily. And I really didn't do well with that at all.
How
So
did you reach out? Did you send an email or did you make up a flyer or like was it sort of a cold call, I guess, at
you
that
know
time?
what I did? I did it like we're talking 12 years ago, so things have changed a lot since then. But what I did was I made up a flyer and I can't remember what I put in it. It would be, a bio of me. It would be what I could do for them and the normal things. I figure now I probably didn't do a very good job of it be-
Yeah.
because I think there's so much more help for that kind of thing out on the web now. Uh,
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So maybe I should do it again and try. But local libraries certainly got me to come and speak, and that was wonderful. It's just so much fun. And then I always took books to sell. And if you can get a reading group to choose your book as a selection, then all those people buy a book, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah, you've spoken to several reading groups over the years, I think. Did it start working for you because of the people that you just knew in the community? Like was it your network that eventually just started working for you or did sort of that cold reach out start to work at some
Yeah,
point?
a little bit of both. And I've always been person in a lot of different groups and know a lot of people and so on, and that really helps. Especially if you've volunteered for things and people get to know that you're a safe bet or something. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly how to say it, but I'm very thankful for all the church groups and just community groups like I can't even think of names right now, but the Probus clubs and there's uh, different groups that you will run into, and they have chapters in every city. And I was on the executive and eventually president of the largest Women's Canadian Club in Canada, the one out of London. And so I knew a lot of people through that. So
Yeah.
the things that you've done, the charity things that you've done, you can find a good way to use those things. You don't want to just become a salesperson.
Yeah, it just seemed to naturally kind of flow into marketing based on
Yeah.
your networks and so on. But because you started with historical fiction, you went into like the forts and that kind of stuff. Like you sort of, it was a sort of genre specific marketing. Can you talk about that a little bit too? And the groups, right? Didn't you connect with some loyalist groups? What do we call
Oh,
those?
yeah.
The UEL groups? Is that what it is?
Yeah, United Empire Loyalists. Yeah. And I love that. And of course, this book is about the loyalists. So I did contact the UAL groups and had great luck there. Um, I had a couple of funny ones there. I went to Toronto, to downtown Toronto, to a group that is named after, and I don't want to identify the group, but
No.
it's named after a person that was historical, and so therefore in my book. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, okay.
And I went down there and I it was the strangest group. And I had done quite a few by then. But I mean, I was a teacher. I mean, you just roll with the punches, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. You knew how to
Yeah.
manage any kind of a group that probably came your way, whether it was a book club or
Exactly.
yeah.
You mean the one with the guy that was in the second or third row and fell asleep? That's fun.
Oh. Well, I think there was
But
a
but
man at some point that wanted to kind of take over at one point too and almost
oh,
lead the group.
I did have one. That one was really funny because that was in my city here, and I was asked by the person who manages that particular facility and to go and put on this workshop, and I did. And there was a man who kept asking questions in an odd sort of way. You know how your spidey senses just start to go, and he was a little bit argumentative, and so on, and I didn't appreciate him, and I didn't want to treat him the way I would have treated a student who was doing that kind of would have put them in their place. So it was a little bit uncomfortable, I guess you would say. But I mean, everybody else was having a great time, and that was fine. And then at the end, he came up to me, and he'd been such a pill throughout the thing. And he asked me if I would give him my PowerPoint presentation and all my notes and all that. Could he have copies of that? I could not believe the gall of the man. So
Yeah, because it didn't seem innocent. It sounded like he kind of wanted to use them for his own workshop or something in the
he
future. Yeah.
wanted to do workshops and he wanted to take my information.
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of run into all kinds, but you have kind of a success, I don't want to say formula, but there kind of was a way that you started to do those speaking gigs that really worked for you. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you found success doing those speaking engagements?
Well, I think a sense of humor is really useful. And I think engaging the audience is really useful. And you and I have talked about this before about the knowledge about whatever subject you're doing. Those people are there because they want to know more and probably already know quite a bit.
Yeah.
So those are things you want to make time and room for when you're speaking. You want to make people feel that their contribution is valid. It's kind of like what I was saying in one of the other sessions that we did about, you get to the end of a paragraph and you kind of want the reader to engage their minds and know or have a pretty good idea of what's going to come next, but you don't tell them every last thing. You make them think. And it
Yeah.
and it's the same with an audience. Sometimes it's way better to ask a question than it is to tell the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I believe that. Wrote a whole book about that, but we won't go
Yeah,
down that
yeah.
road. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we're still out in the world. We're not as good at that as I'd like us to be. I'd like to, I hear about my grandchildren and they have classes with people that, um, they're just so boring. And they're boring because they don't engage the students.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, if I could add a piece of advice in too, for people out there listening or watching this that really don't have the teaching background that you do, then the more they engage people, the easier it actually is to get up and do
Oh,
that thing, isn't it? Because it's
oh
not all
yeah.
about you. Yeah,
And there's all kinds of books out there about that. And yours is one that is really useful. And I know you don't want me to pitch your book, but I just loved when you wrote that book, Designed to Engage, because engagement is what we want.
yeah,
Because we engage those people, then we're going to take them down a path. And for me, I'm hoping they're going to buy my book. I'm hoping that they're going to invite me to come to their group, you see?
yeah,
And so I think that whole idea of engagement is crucial.
yeah. So there's a little bit about it becomes almost a workshop, but there's the reading part as well. Like you had to then read your work. And that's a different thing, isn't it? Was that difficult for you to, hold your book and read passages, or did that come naturally to you? Because that I did that not so long ago for the first time, read something that I had written, and I thought, oh my gosh, my heart is really beating here. And I've stood up in front of groups for years, but it was different to read my own words. Did you find that challenging at all, or did it come naturally?
Um, I wouldn't say that I found it too challenging. It's like when I do the audiobooks, like I record my own audiobooks. And when I'm sitting in the studio and we're all wired up for sound and everything, I want to picture myself in the situation and I want to have the excitement of that moment or the sadness,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and I want to live it. And it just goes with that. When I'm writing, I always say that if I'm writing a sad scene, and I've written a few, and
Hmm.
I realize that the tears are running down my cheeks, then I know it's a good scene
Yeah,
because I know what I'm going to write and it's making me cry.
yeah. So place yourself in the moment, and then you're conveying all of that to your audience at those
Yeah.
speaking gigs. Yeah, draw people in.
And when I was going to do my first audiobook, I asked one of the people at one of the libraries nearby where I had gone. It's about an hour away or so. And I said, I'm thinking of doing audiobooks. And I I just wondered, do you think that's a good idea to do my own? And she said, oh, Elaine, she said, after you left that day, we talked about it and we all decided that we could have you read the whole book to us.
That's nice. Yeah,
It was, you do get the funny things, but that one you also get validation if people like what you do. So
yeah.
it's
Feels
really
good that way.
important to think of what they like, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you're keeping your reader, your listeners' needs top of mind. What about actually selling the book? So you've come to these speaking gigs, you've brought a box probably of books, and I know some people would probably find it hard to close the deal in a way to then say at the end of the presentation or whatever, oh, and now buy the book, like how did you make that work for you? Did it work, I suppose, as well to sell your books at these
Yeah,
events?
I think it works pretty well. And what I always did, like I really like using a PowerPoint, not for putting every word I'm going to say up there, but for putting pictures or two or three words And that's because I don't like writing out a speech and then
Yeah.
reading it. And so, but I need to have a cue to know what I was thinking I would talk about because as you can see, I can talk about anything and go on and on and on. And it keeps you focused. So that's what I did as far as selling the books. At the end, I would put up a nice slide and I would I can't remember if I put the price up or not. I kind of don't like to put up the price. I kind of figure, come up to my table. That's what I want them to do is come to
Yeah.
the table, So I found it really not too bad. And there's two things to that. So they're at a thing and I'm the speaker. And so obviously they know something about me and they're getting comfortable with me and maybe they have more questions. And that's wonderful. And if you can get them so that getting their questions answered, and a lot of them want to tell you things in their own story that relate, and that's amazing. I just love having those conversations, especially with people who know the history, and they can say, well, I know about such and such, and it's
Mhm.
just a fun thing to do. And of course, at this time of my life, I'm really not looking to make a pile of money. I'm looking to keep this going and
Yeah.
to enjoy myself and to meet people and so on. I
Yeah.
I did mention the group in Toronto that I went and spoke to, and the next night I got a phone call. And I just wanted to tell you this because we got off the topic a little bit, but I got a phone call from one of the people who was at the meeting. And I got to tell you, that was a strange meeting. There were lovely people there, but they were just strange in different ways. And this man wanted me to send him 2 or 3 books. And I said, yes. And of course, if I'm going to do that, they have to pay me first. So I don't know them from Adam. And this is before I had my books on Amazon. Like
Okay.
when you put your books on Amazon, it makes it a whole lot easier, or other places, it doesn't matter which one you use, I guess. But anyways, we're having this conversation. My husband is sitting in the next chair, and all of a sudden, this man who was kind of odd anyhow. I mean, my spidey senses were up there. And I can't even tell you what he said because it was swearing. He swore at his mother, who was in the other room,
Oh no.
and he yelled it out about what he was doing, and he used really vile words. He came
Oh
back
my
to
gosh.
me, and I pretty much shut it down. I just thought, okay, and my spidey senses were already working, and when he did that, I thought, nope, we're done. I'm
Oh,
not
that's
sending you
strange. Oh
books.
my gosh. You never know what you're gonna get, I guess, when you go and do these, but that is really rare, I would say too,
Well,
probably.
and I mean, he was very nice to me. Thank goodness he didn't swear at me.
Yeah. Call you up after and swear at you after your presentation the night before. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to have a sense of humor to do this. But I have to say,
Yeah.
most of the people that you meet are wonderful and they know things you don't know. And so it's just thrilling to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose there's an aspect of safety to that, and maybe, that's not something that people would run into really typically, but especially as a woman, there's maybe an aspect of safety that people might have to think about giving their information out or whatever. I mean, I don't know if you ever experienced that, but it occurs to me now that is a little bit of a risky situation to go and talk to all these groups of strangers in some ways.
That's funny you say that. And I have gone to a lot of the things by myself, but mostly when I go now, your father comes with me. And that's just because we have more time now, and we like to do those things together.
Yeah.
And I go when he's speaking, and so on, and we're just our backup people. But in the early days, I was out there by myself. So one thing I did was I had business cards made up with my information on them, and on the back of them my books. Okay. So it was, I felt a good business card, but I only gave those to certain people, people that I had vetted at my,
Yeah.
um, and then what I had for people I wasn't sure of yet, I had bookmarks. And so you can put your books in it, but you don't put your personal information
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I
Because it's,
would put my
yeah.
website on there, you see, and they can go to my website and they can send me something, but they don't have my phone number there. They don't, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is your home phone number. It's different than having a corporation or something where it's a separate business number and all the rest, right? It is your personal information you're putting on that business card. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
And
collected names, I think, too, though. Like, so you were maybe giving your information out to some people, but you were trying to get information too because you were starting a newsletter list, maybe right from the very beginning. Did you?
yeah, yeah, I did
Yeah.
start one, and we can talk more about that later about how I got that to work better for me. But every time I speak, I have a thing. I give away a book, so I have a thing for them to fill out, and I say that they will be on my newsletter list.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not fooling them, but this is what you fill out in order to have your name in the bowl, and
Yeah.
maybe you win the book. But you don't really, you have to be careful with that stuff. And I always tell them that. And once you get the first newsletter from me, if you don't like it, there's a place right there where you can, get rid of it. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to trick people, you
No,
know.
and I think we can't because we're under laws now, I think. And maybe we weren't then, but we are now, aren't we, about the
Yeah,
opt-ins and
yeah,
all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And I have several stacks of those things that people have filled out for me because of that law. That, we have to be able to prove that they asked us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's not just blindly sending it to everybody. So, but I have
Yeah.
about 1,500 people on my list now because, do you want me to tell you about how I did that?
Yeah, let's talk. I can't remember if we've talked about email marketing. I'm not sure. Maybe we touched on it just lightly, but yeah, let's just go into a little bit. How did you? Because it worked for you for a long time, and it still does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I still have, as I say, between 14 and 1,500 names and so on. And a lot of them are people that I have met and added to see when they fill those out, then I take and put them on the software so that they go out. Um, but other people can just go on my website and they can sign up that way. But I did um, find companies that you could join a list that they had as an author, and you'd send them the pictures of your books and so on. And then they would put out these things for anybody to sign up for, and they could win a book or, different things like that. And they knew that they had to get one of your newsletters. They had to agree to get one of your newsletters.
Okay.
And then they could, they either won the prize or they didn't, but at least the author knew that they had seen your newsletter.
Yeah.
And and that worked really well for me. Well, then the company that I was doing that with, they decided to let people just sign up for the thing, and there was nothing for the author. You might
Um,
have, 10,000 people signed up to get free books. And if your book was one of them, like there might be 20 books in an offering or something like that. And all those authors had to put the books up there, and that's fine. But the authors didn't get any payback because they didn't have to look at your site. They didn't have to know what the book was or anything. They could just put their name in. It's kind of
yeah.
like somebody comes to your front door and puts their name in a hat, and you do the whole block, and then one of them wins some, but they haven't done anything for it.
Yeah, and you didn't get their names. Like they didn't hand
No.
over 3,000 names or anything. Yeah, yeah. So then you're just giving away nothing
Yeah.
for nothing or something for
And
nothing.
so
Yeah,
so then I stopped working with that company because I thought, well, this isn't fair. I'm a big person about honesty and fairness. And that's part of my whole life is making sure things are fair to both sides and so on.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of shysters out there. Like we still, both of us, we get every week, I think I get something either related to the podcast I have or the book. And you probably do too still, like, oh, we can do this for you and we can get it out there. And it's just spam type stuff, right? Like we have to really watch out for those because we get them a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's the downside of putting yourself out on the web. I don't know in this day and age how you can avoid it, but you can avoid it by not putting your phone number out there and stuff like that. But everybody has to deal with that kind of
yeah,
stuff today. Did we kind
yeah.
of go off topic there a bit?
Well, we got into email newsletters, which is great, but let's go on to trade shows because that was the other thing we wanted to talk about fair selling your book at fairs and trade show type events because you've done that a lot over the years too, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. And actually the knowledge that I have about that started earlier. I am old enough that I went to school in a system that there wasn't a lot of imagination allowed. It was most of the courses we took, it was memorize this and learn this and so on. And that's why I hated history when I was in high school because there was no talk about the people who were involved. It was what are the six reasons for blah, blah, blah,
Yeah. Memorize.
and it got really boring to me. So when I tell people now that I hated history, and now I love history because now I look at history from the point of view of the people and how did the people react when Governor Simcoe came from England and was there at the beginning of Ontario and Quebec and what were those things that happened and how did that affect the people in those little cabins and so on and that's where the stories are, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's when I started to really like history, when you could start to see some of that.
Yeah. So you brought those out in your speaking gigs, but what's the link to trade shows? Did you end up talking with people about the history or tell me where you were going there with that one?
Know that I really went to trade shows. I guess you could call book fairs kind of a trade show, but we
Yeah,
don't.
I just sort of catch-all term, but yeah, book fair, is that an easier, more accurate term to use?
Well, and I like going to book fairs, but I also was careful to see what the setup was because some people set up something, and you always have to pay to be in these trade shows, and so you just have to make sure that it's fair and that you're going to have a good space. Here's something I learned. Many years before, I used to have a part-time embroidery business. I bought a computerized embroidery machine. Oh, I don't know, 1990 or something like that, and I did it just for fun because, as I said, in school it wasn't that much fun. Imaginative a lot of the time. So when I could afford to, and when I had the time to do it, I bought an embroidery machine and I would do shirts for people. Our family had that musical that we put on for a week, like 950 people in the school auditorium for about 6 nights or something like that. And so I sold sweatshirts and t-shirts and stuff with the Garner Family Singers, and I think it was we did two. We did The Sound of Music, and then we did the Pirates of Penzance. And I did the shirts, and it was just so much fun because I could put together color. I could, look for the nice fabric, the good quality fabric, and I could make a product that was rewarding to me.
Hmm.
We've all seen the crappy things that are put out, but I just really enjoyed doing that creative stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. So when you went to put together a booth for the book fairs, is that creative aspect? Is that where you're going to you liked
Yeah.
putting together the look of the booth and that kind of thing as well?
I did, and I got fairly good at it. I think I was selling books, so it must have been okay. But what I was doing, what I learned with that earlier business, with doing the t-shirts and sweatshirts and stuff, when you're at the venue, do not sit behind your own table. You get up and you go across the hall and you look at the person look at their booth, and you stand and you talk to them and you keep an eye on your booth, but you leave your booth unmanned so that shy people can come up and look at the books, and they don't have to worry that somebody's sitting there that's going to sell them. And then so I'm across the hall, and I would come out or just walk over and say, "Oh, do you like to read?"
Yeah.
And just something, and they have no idea who I am at this point. And you just start a conversation. And if they say, "No, I just thought maybe I'd look," or whatever, then that's fine. And they are free to say what's in their head,
Yeah.
so that is a really good skill that I just learned on my own, and you can use that with books because some people will say, well, this is, historical fiction, or this is an anthology, and I really like anthologies, or and you just open a conversation, and then, very soon you let them know who you are if you sense that this is somebody who's interested in books. And most times it is. They're not there because
Hmm.
they don't like books. They're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but there's ways to talk to people that are not, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say here, that it's not threatening.
Yeah, not scary. Exactly. That's where my mind was going too, because we've all been in that situation where you go up and you feel like you're trapped all of a sudden at the booth
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
don't want that. And really, my number one thing, I guess I'm lucky because I like people and I like finding out about them. And so if I sell the book, that's great. I like to, if I just break even on my books, I'm happy. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's something I do because it touches my heart, I guess,
Yeah.
and so I
Yeah, the
guess,
goals are different. It's not just a monetary goal, is it, to go out to sell your book in
oh,
any way, basically, right? It's a lot about
oh
the
no.
people and yeah.
You have to like what you're doing, especially at this stage in your life. You've spent a lot of years doing things you had to do, and they weren't necessarily number one on your list, but you did them because they needed to be done and so on. But now, you know, when I write a lovely story about something, or, oh, I wanted to mention, maybe this is the time to do it. Um, you know about this, but this is a book that was put out by Oxford County here, where I live in Ontario. And I saw last fall that they were looking for people to tell stories about people who settled this area in Canada, and to like keep those stories alive, I think. And so I immediately, like a few people know me in this city as a writer and so on. So when I called and asked about it, the person knew me, and she said, absolutely, because I wanted to know kind of exactly what are you looking for. And I wanted to write about my parents because both of them were amazing community people, and they their stories deserve to be told. And so anyways, long story short, the book came out last week, and I'm very excited because my two stories about my parents are in that book. Now, I'm never going to make a nickel from that book, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to show people, growing stronger together, a celebration of Oxford County's past. And
Yeah.
that speaks to my heart. We have to remember the good things in the past and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a different goal for being a part of that. But somebody else might have the goal of marketing themselves, and that's a way for them to get their name out in another aspect and so on. So it is a marketing thing as well, isn't it? Being part of somebody else's anthology
Yeah, and
compilation.
and I am in a couple of other anthologies and so on. But this one, I don't know if they just didn't let us do it or what, but there's not much in there. It's just my name. It doesn't say that I'm
Okay.
a writer or anything like that. So if I had really been wanting to push it, I would have said, no, you need to put a little bio in about each of the people that wants it. Some of them wouldn't have wanted it, you know,
Right.
but
Yeah, that's surprising because usually you'd see maybe even like in a like the magazine format, you'd see two or three lines or something,
yeah.
right? You kind of have a sense. I suppose they could do it after on the website or
Well,
something, but
and
yeah,
and yeah, I'm going to put it on my website, and I'm going to do probably a blog post about it, or a newsletter uh, section where I talk about it. But
yeah,
if for writers that are out there, every time you get a chance, get your name out there,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because it's so important that writing and creative pursuits be given the same kind of applause, shall we say, that sports figures are, and you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe even a little bit of the money sometime. But our education system is more geared towards sciences and maths and that kind of stuff right now. But there are still a lot of people who want to be writing, who love to read, you
Oh
know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
there's a maybe an aspect of everything you do as a writer in your life, well, not everything, but a lot of things you could use that in your email marketing, like you have to kind of keep putting yourself out there to your audience, don't you? And you've always been good at that through, even just a trip that you and dad have taken and kind of find the thing that could come back and relate to writing and then talk about that and just it might
yeah.
be difficult for some people, but you've always been able to find that thing that's interesting that you can then talk about and put out to the world that's related.
And and I've made a few decisions along the way there too. I've told you about a couple of the silly things that have happened to me, but you'll never see me writing a blog post and naming people or that kind of. As a matter of fact, I was at an event where somebody was talking about, you should write in your blog posts about those nasty things because people really like the nasty stuff. And I said, I spoke up and I said, no, I've made a decision that that's not who I want to be known at. And so, anyways,
No.
I was in Vancouver early on in my journey, and I was at a conference, and it was for business women. And as I said before, I like to go up and talk to the speakers and learn from them and get their emails. So this one person, I can't even exactly remember what her um, business was about, but she was big on, of course, this is 12 years ago. So this is when blogging was in its heyday. And
Hmm.
she said in her presentation that you want to put uh, something controversial in there so that people will call you out about it or they'll write about you. And she said that's the way to get advertising, and to get noticed. And so when I wrote the thing, I wrote a thing about every presenter that I saw. And I did a blog post about each of them as the days went on after that. And she wrote a comment. People wrote a lot of comments on blog posts then. They don't so
Yeah.
much now.
No, I know now. Nothing.
But she wrote a nasty comment in there and
Wow.
said something about, well, I didn't mention blah, blah, blah that she did. And of course, when you're writing a piece about somebody, you don't put every last little thing in there.
Hmm.
She did it in a nasty way, a confrontational way. And I knew from having sat in her presentation, she was doing it to get noticed and to create a fight online so that people would notice her. And I thought, oh my goodness.
Wow.
So I had the power and I took the whole blog post and her comments down.
Yeah, it's like you don't get the promo from me anymore. Yeah, it's really surprising. It's probably pretty unusual, but what a way to decide to show up in the world.
I know. So
Yeah.
I was at an event and I mentioned that to the people. It was a group of about 20 people or something. And I mentioned that. And don't you know, somebody at the event stuck up his hand and he spoke and he said, I made a mistake, that she was right. And I really should have kept the fight going.
Oh, you're like, okay.
So there
I
you
guess
go.
you're
There's
making a
all
choice.
kinds. There's all
Yeah.
kinds out there. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, when you're putting yourself out there, you're having to decide what you're going to portray yourself as, your real person, or are you putting on some sort of weird persona or nasty persona? Like you've always chosen the higher road, I think, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, and your dad too. Oh, we were teachers, and we really felt it was part of our job to put ourselves out in the world as role models. You know,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
teaching teenagers. You don't want to put something out there saying that it's nasty, and you what kind of thing is that to teach kids, eh?
No, if I saw that from an author, I wouldn't buy their book for sure. I just think, well, I guess I
Yeah.
don't need to, even if they've got a wonderful story, if you can't respect the person, why would you want to give them your business basically as a reader? So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mentioned I think maybe about a writer in England that I read two or three of her books, and I read them all because they were quite good and quite interesting, but they made me mad because the heroine was a woman, and of course we like to denigrate women in the arts and so on. We like to sometimes make the woman the bad guy, but they made the bad woman the hero, I feel like, of the book, and tried to mitigate what she was doing and all this stuff. And I thought, you know, we have enough bad role models out there. I
hmm
want to write about people that grow and that become something that I can, I don't know, just really respect and maybe even love,
yeah,
because sometimes your heroes in your books, you just love what they do and what happens with,
yeah.
you know.
That's neat. Yeah, so it's not about you, just about you showing up authentically in the world. You're trying to create the characters that can do the same.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah,
I'm sure there are lots of people who enjoy reading as the books like that, and it doesn't make them bad people or anything, but I don't enjoy that particularly. I kind of look for a higher plane. I guess that's the little girl who went to Sunday school and do unto others as you would have them do unto you and all those kinds of things.
yeah, yeah. So while we're talking about, I mean, mistakes in a way, I mean, whatever. They didn't think they were mistakes. We might think they're mistakes, how they're choosing to show up in the world, these other authors or something. But can you think of, like, back at the book fair situation, what did you see other folks doing that weren't as effective? Because you found a way to engage people and kind of ease them into talking to you at the booth, but you must have seen some other examples where they might be pitfalls that people could fall into and they wouldn't know it necessarily. Yeah, like what should people avoid when they're having a
Yeah.
booth at a fair for their
Well,
book?
I think you really want to avoid that overselling persona. You don't want to be there as a hawker,
Yeah, yeah.
That's really my opinion, and I'm sure there are lots of people that do things. But really, for the most part, I haven't seen anybody doing too much that was negative in that sort of way. I did see sometimes people would just sit behind their desk and they wouldn't even look up at the people who were,
Hmm.
and of course. That's anathema to me. I just enjoy the people. Well, most of them. Every now and again, there's one you don't enjoy, but
Yeah. What about the two people that sit at the booth and then they don't look up at you and they continue talking to each other, right? You're kind of like, hey, I'm
and
I'm looking at your
it's
stuff
like
here.
that. It's like that when you go into a store and you go up and you want to pay your thing, and the two people that are supposed to be waiting on customers, they're having a conversation. What are you doing
Yeah.
interrupting them?
Yeah. So it's kind of nice to have a wing woman or a wingman. I guess if authors are a little shy to do a booth, but
Yeah,
then there is
yeah,
a trap around not paying attention to the people
yeah.
walking up either. Yeah.
Yeah, but mostly I think going to a book fair is really fun on both sides of the table. Unfortunately, sometimes people will tell you that they're really not very good at talking to people and that sort of thing. And so I'd like to put out a call to all the parents in the world. When you have that baby, get them out in the world, and please do not let them hide behind you and not talk to strangers and all that kind of stuff, Teach them
Yeah.
people are, for the most part, pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah. We gotta get out there and talk to people. And it's not easy for everyone, that's for sure. But it is
Yeah,
the skill I think that people can grow.
I
Yeah.
think
If
I
they
think
want to. Yeah.
you said it exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know what else you got for me there.
Well, I don't know. That feels pretty good. Is there anything around marketing at speaking events or trade fairs or book fairs that you think you missed? Anything you want to add in before we close?
Um, I think I think just be yourself as much as you can and try to pick up some of those habits, because that's what they are. And the more you do this, the easier it gets. Um, the first bookshop that I was in was open in my city. Of course, so many of these small bookshops have closed, but and I went down there and they were lovely, but it was a small bookshop, had been there since the time I was in high school. It was a really well-established bookshop. Um, but hardly anybody came in
Mm,
because it was the death of these small bookstores. It's like that movie. What was the movie? And I can't even think of who was in it, but he moved in and he had this great big bookshop, and it's the online.
yeah, you've got mail with
You've
Meg
got
Ryan and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Tom
and
Hanks. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, and I love that movie. I thought it was so cool, but it was so true too. That
yeah.
because
She
look
was
at
the
the
shopper. I
bookshops
actually just
now.
watched it in the last year. The little shop around the corner or something was what she was called.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. But look at it. We've got all our bookshops now, and there a lot of them are big, but half of them is filled with comforters and mitts and stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Like we really have a problem with bookshops, and for them to make a living in the world that we're in today.
Yeah,
It's
it is
difficult.
tough. Yeah. And with self-published books, I guess the expectation isn't necessarily that it will be in a physical bookstore because of that kind of thing, right? That with self-published books were often only available online, and that's a whole other challenge, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, and I have had them in the bookstores, and that's maybe a good story to tell. I went in and I went through all the hoops that they wanted me to, and so on. But part of the documentation that I signed was that if anybody stole one of my books, too bad for me. They wouldn't, they wouldn't commit to paying me for it or anything. Or if anybody destroyed one of my books, that was me, the author, that would pay the price. If all any bad thing that could
Yeah.
happen, the author had to pay it, and you only got like, I don't know, 10% or maybe 15%. Like, it was so little. And then I thought one day I went into the store and they didn't know who I was, and I went to the back. I went looking for my book, and I found it at the back of the store. And imagine you go to the back of the store and there's a wall there. And so you turn around so you're facing the bookshelves. And, they were alphabetical by author name. And I found my books on the bottom shelf. Not one of them turned out so you could see the cover.
Yeah.
And I had all this responsibility for those books that I have paid for. Okay.
Yeah. Because it's
Nobody
it's
gave them to
consignment,
me.
basically, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I took my books out and I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. Now, I do know a friend who is in London, and he's got amazing books, and he goes to bookstores. His books are in bookstores, and he goes probably every 2 or 3 months. And he has an amazing story, for one thing. And he also um, is very good at talking to the people. This man was a little boy in the 1940s in the Second World War, and his they lived in Berlin, Germany, and his father was not interested in the Nazis, but he was pushed into a position where they conscripted him. He was 38 years old, and they
Yeah.
conscripted him and made him go to the Russian front, which was a terrible, terrible thing. So Rudy wrote his parents' stories, and
Yeah, I
uh,
think you mentioned him before. Yeah.
I did, and
Yeah.
he tells their stories. So Rudy sells a lot of books because he knows how to talk about
Mm,
those stories, and of course, a lot of us still remember all that post-war stuff where you know any TV programs that had Germans in, they made them look so stupid and that kind of thing. So to
mm.
talk to Rudy and hear his story is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So it worked for him to be in bookstores, but it doesn't work for all of us, does it? Because of the genre that we're writing in, the topic that we're writing in, it doesn't always have a mass market appeal,
Yeah.
does it? So yeah, but we've talked about other options today too, so that's good.
Do you know what you should? I know this is supposed to be interviewing me, but maybe you'd like to just add what you do with your nonfiction book and how you got it across all the venues that you have.
Yeah, because I used a publishing services company that has worldwide distribution. That's the route that I chose to go, to pay for that service to create the book, and then they don't market it. They just make it available, don't they? So that's always worked for me because I'm still working. Um, I have other things to do to run my own business, and the fact that I hired this company to ensure that worldwide distribution with very little effort on my part has been really good. But it doesn't mean it's not in physical bookstores. I think it was here in a couple ones in Victoria when I first started, but a book about designing and facilitating workshops isn't really a mass market appeal kind of book. It's really niche. And so it didn't do very well in stores, but it does better worldwide for the facilitators who are around the world, right? So yeah, so it's a mindset thing, isn't it? To go, well, I don't really care that it's not in physical bookstores because it's not that kind of book, but it gets sold other ways, and I get really good feedback on it too. So, it's the mindset of just it is what it is. It's always helped me in my business. And again, the sales don't really matter in some respects because I have a successful core business and this is just a side gig.
Yeah.
But
And it
it worked
shows
for
that,
the purpose that I wrote it for, which is the book as business card kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that, I think that's a really valid thing to mention in this context that
yeah,
I kind of
yeah,
touched on that too, that I'm not doing this because I need to make a pile of money from it. I'm doing it
yeah.
because it makes my heart sing.
Yeah, yeah, because if we like to write, we'll do it anyway. And so, I mean, if you make a little money from the writing, that's great, but it's not the whole reason why we're doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's the people you meet and the people that just you get an email from somebody and they thank you for for the book or for this character or whatever. And writing touches people's hearts many times. And I was going to say about yours, I think it should be more of a mass market book because of the wonderful skills that you mentioned that could so help teachers in the classroom. I don't care what age group.
yeah, well, for sure. Thank you for that. Because I never wrote it for teachers. I wrote it for adult educators, but actually, people who stand up and make presentations to talk about their books can use it as well, I think, right? Because it is about the engagement piece that you talked about earlier. And if people
Yeah,
struggle with knowing how to do that, that my book is about that. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, people
yeah.
can check it out. Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
mentioning it. Well, this
Oh,
has been great.
you're just so much like your mother, I guess, you poor thing.
Well, and like you, I don't think I'll get to 8 books, but I'm writing my second. So, it is something that we're called to do, I think. And in some ways, writing has helped me get my thoughts together about what I think about. I write them about my field. And so there's all sorts of benefits around writing that I've gained, not just around selling the published book. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh, gotta uh, clear my throat today. But yeah, yeah, tons of personal benefits, but business benefits too on my side.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. All right.
All right. Thank you for this great talk about marketing our books, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.